So the New Yorker came to me about a year ago and suggested that I might be interested in doing a piece on the Ganges. And I said yes. And we discussed really what kind of a piece it should be. We wanted a lot of color because it's an extremely colorful story. You've got great locations, you've got strong characters. And it seemed to me also a good way of getting to this mystery that people still, I don't think, can really resolve. You know, who is Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister? Because he had a long reputation as a Hindu radical, had been implicated in some nasty events when he was in the state of Gujarat. And he also came to power promising that he was going to solve India's economic problems, he was going to clean up corruption in the government, he was going to compete with China as an economic power, he was very pro-technology, he loved social media. So you had these two images. And I remember at the time of the election 2 years ago, The Economist magazine had a cover that portrayed him in a very menacing light. And the editorial that went with it essentially said, this man should never be elected, he's too dangerous. He'd been denied a US visa for 10 years. And then he won the election 6 weeks after that story came out, and there he is on the cover again, he's dressed all in white, he's got this little smile, and it's like India's savior. So I thought the Ganges cleanup was a really good way of getting at that. Is he one, is he the other, or is he both? And I think I pretty much concluded in the end, he's both. I think the biggest surprise to me, although in some way it shouldn't have been a surprise knowing India pretty well, is Narendra Modi is spending $3 billion over 5 years to clean up the Ganges. So I thought, okay, how does that compare to what's been spent in the last 30 years? I found a good NGO critique, respected NGO, of the history of the failure, and they said the government has spent $300 million over the last 30 years. I thought, well, that is not a huge amount, so I'll check it, see what other estimates. I know it's difficult to establish things in India. So I found another one, 700 million. I found another one, 230 million. I found another one, 6 billion. I thought, well, this is ridiculous. I'll go to the official sources because those are going to be the most accurate. You know, these are NGOs, they're independent analysts, whatever. So I found two reports, both from 2012. Couldn't find anything more recent. One was from the cabinet, compiling supposedly data from all the ministries. Cabinet report to the Prime Minister. $600 million have been spent since 1986 when this started. I found another report from the government's Central Pollution Control Board, a very respected agency, $3 billion. So the government figures vary by 500%. And I suddenly thought, there you have Modi's problem in a nutshell. No one is collecting accurate figures. There's no transparency. The government ministries who are involved are not coordinating with each other. You don't know how much was actually spent versus how much was budgeted. You don't know how much of what was budgeted disappeared into people's pockets before it got to the sewage treatment plants or the factory cleanups. One of the people I interviewed in the story, head of an NGO environmental group in Kanpur, monitoring the tanneries. He's been doing it for 23 years. He said, you know, 30 to 40% of the money just disappears into the pockets of officials. That's routine. That's not even considered corruption and bribery. That's just doing business. And he said sometimes it's 100%. All the money disappears and they check it off on the list saying project completed, and there is no project. I would say the other surprise in writing this story was that here you have a river which is 1,500 miles long, major river, the most sacred river in India, a goddess. About 500 million people depend on the river and its tributaries for their livelihood, their survival. It is an environmental problem of global significance, from the glaciers melting at the source because of global warming to sea level rise at the mouth. And yet there are probably 2 or maybe 3 full-time environmental activists on the Ganges.